Welcome back to Id Resonance Talks, everyone. We are happy you are joining us for the first episode of Season 2. It is going to be a great year. You know, Alice, I've been thinking a lot lately about how a classroom feels the moment you step into it. That energy, that buzz, it's almost palpable, isn't it? And often, that vibe is set long before the first lesson even begins.
Absolutely, Robert. It's like a whole ecosystem, right? I mean, I remember days walking into a class feeling like I was already behind, just by the sheer volume or the scattered energy. And other days, it just felt different, calmer, more ready. It's wild how much that impacts everything that follows.
It really is, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. The fascinating neurobiology and psychology behind effective classroom management. We're talking about shifting from those old school, often punitive, reactive methods to really proactive, brain friendly strategies. No more just raising your voice louder and hoping for the best.
Thank goodness for that, because honestly, the shout louder approach usually just escalates things. It certainly never made me feel more in control or the kids feel more settled. So, what's the big secret? How do we, as educators, tap into this neurobiological understanding?
Well, it starts with us, the educators. The first pillar is what we call the embodied educator. It's all about our physical presence and nonverbal authority. Think about it. Our brains are wired to process nonverbal cues incredibly fast, faster than words, even.
That makes so much sense. Like when you see someone stressed out, even if they're saying, I'm fine, your body just knows something's off. Our amygdala, that ancient alarm system in our brain, is constantly scanning for those signals, right?
Exactly. So, strategy one is establishing grounded physical presence upon entry. Many of us, myself included when I was teaching, would rush into the room, maybe still shuffling papers, half distracted, calling out instructions as we go. But what does that communicate?
Chaos! Or at least a lack of an anchor. I mean, if the adult isn't settled, why should the kids be? Their little alarm systems are probably going off just like ours would if the pilot of a plane boarded looking completely frazzled. It's that low-level sympathetic arousal, that fight or flight feeling that gets triggered.
Precisely. And then you have mirror neurons kicking in. They cause students to internally simulate our actions and emotions. So, a hurried teacher often inadvertently creates a hurried, dysregulated classroom. The counter strategy is simple but powerful. Enter the room, stop, plant your feet, scan, and let your presence settle the room before a single word is spoken.
Oh, that strategic stillness. I've seen teachers do that, and it's like magic. The whole room just exhales. It communicates safety, doesn't it? That I'm in charge and everything's okay vibe. It's like our nervous systems naturally synchronize to the most regulated adult there.
That's exactly it. And speaking of nonverbal cues, let's talk about strategy four: emotional precision and neutral facial expressions. How many times have you seen a teacher trying to correct a behavior while also giving a friendly smile?
Oh, too many times, and I've probably done it myself. It's that urge to be nice, right? To soften the blow. But I think it often backfires. The student gets a mixed signal. You're telling me off, but you're smiling? It's confusing.
It creates massive cognitive dissonance. The brain is getting conflicting information. A verbal correction is a negative stimulus, but a smile is a positive affective stance. The amygdala gets confused, and it can hinder the student's own emotion regulation process. They don't know the actual emotional reality of the situation.
So you're saying we should adopt the teacher face, that neutral, flat expression when correcting behavior? Not cold or harsh, but just emotionally precise?
Precisely. It removes the emotional charge. It keeps the student's dignity intact because it's not a personal attack, but it firmly upholds the behavioral standard. It's especially important in diverse classrooms where nonverbal cues can carry different meanings. A neutral face is often universally understood as this is a serious boundary, not a personal slight.
That's a huge shift from how many of us were trained, or how we naturally react when we're frustrated. It requires real self-awareness, but it makes so much sense when you think about the brain's processing. Now let's talk about the voice, because that's another big one for me.
Absolutely. Auditory processing and linguistic economy. Our voice is a powerful tool, but we often misuse it. Strategy two is securing attention before verbalizing instruction. What's the common habit you see?
Oh, speaking over students for sure, or giving instructions while they're still transitioning, still buzzing from the last activity. It's like the teacher's voice just becomes part of the background noise. Then they have to repeat themselves, louder and louder, which just adds to the chaos.
Exactly. And neurobiologically, this is tied to Dr. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory. When the room is chaotic, students are in a low level threat state. Their middle ear structures are actually tuned to detect low frequency predator sounds, not the specific frequencies of human speech. It's wild, right?
Wow, so they're literally not hearing us correctly because their nervous system is in a defensive mode? That's mind-blowing. So by waiting for silence, we're allowing their collective nervous system to shift into a ventral vagal state, which is where they feel safe and ready to engage socially and academically.
Precisely. Their brains are then optimized to process our voices. And this connects to strategy 3, brevity, and the elimination of nervous talking. How many times have you heard a teacher over explain, repeat themselves, or fill every silence with extra words?
Guilty. It's that anxiety, isn't it? The fear of losing control, so you just keep talking, hoping to fill the space. But it dilutes your authority. It sounds like you're negotiating, not directing. Plus, it just sounds nervous.
And nervous talking absolutely signals sympathetic arousal. Students' neuroception unconsciously picks up on that anxiety. Plus, it increases cognitive load. The prefrontal cortex, our air traffic control, can only hold so much information. Paragraph long instructions just create bottlenecks, especially for students with attention deficits or trauma.
So, short, clear, well timed instructions? Get to the point. Less is more, basically. Which brings us to strategy 8 direct directives instead of questions. Can we get started? Versus open your textbooks to page 42. It's a subtle but huge difference.
It's massive. A question, even a polite one, creates an open cognitive loop. It suggests compliance is a negotiation. A directive closes that loop. It removes decision fatigue. Think about a student who's already struggling. Do you want them spending cognitive resources deciding whether to comply or processing a polite request?
Definitely not. They need clarity, especially if their executive functions are already stretched. But it's not about being harsh, right? It's about a calm, low-pitched, measured tone, not authoritarian but clear.
Exactly. The goal is clarity and psychological safety, not coercion. When directives are delivered with a neutral tone, students don't perceive it as a personal attack or a power play. It's just the law of the land, so to speak, in the classroom.
That's such a nuanced point. It's not about being a drill sergeant, but about being a steady, predictable leader. Shifting gears now, let's talk about how we manage space, because where we are in the room and how we address behavior feels incredibly important.
It absolutely is. This is Spatial Dynamics and Behavioral Contingencies, Strategy 6, Proximity Control over Distance Correction. The old habit is to call out a student from across the room, turning a minor issue into a public spectacle. What's the impact of that?
It's terrible. It amplifies the disruption, gives the student an audience, and, frankly, often backs them into a corner. Their amygdala goes into overdrive, right? That fight or flight response, or even a freeze response where they shut down entirely. Learning stops.
Bingo. Public shaming is almost never effective. Proximity control, on the other hand, is a nonverbal, antecedent based intervention. You just move closer to the student. Your physical presence subtly signals, I see you, I'm aware, and often the behavior stops without a single word.
It preserves dignity, it's quiet, the rest of the class isn't interrupted, and it works. I've seen it work wonders, just standing near a student's desk while continuing to teach the whole class. It's like a superpower, honestly. It tells them, I know you're off task, but I trust you to get back on, and I'm not going to embarrass you.
And it minimizes the cognitive load of public embarrassment, keeping the entire room focused on academics. Then there's Strategy 5, Single Instruction and Consistent Follow Through. This is a classic, but it's so often missed.
The I told you 5 times already problem. We repeat ourselves because we want compliance, but really, we're training them that the first instruction is irrelevant. It's like a game where they learn they have several chances before there's an actual consequence.
It's a variable ratio schedule of reinforcement for noncompliance, essentially. If they know you'll repeat it 4 times, they've been trained to ignore the first 3. Our students are always studying us, gathering social data. Consistent follow through gives immediate, clear feedback.
So give the instruction once, pause, and then follow through immediately and unemotionally. If the consequence is a brief restorative conversation, do it. If it's a redirection, do it. Every time. No anger, no lectures, just mechanical consistency.
Exactly. That consistency, whether it's positive reinforcement or a neutral corrective action, shapes behavior until it's internalized. It extinguishes those delay tactics rapidly. Meta analyses show consistency is one of the strongest predictors of behavioral improvement.
That's a powerful point. It creates a sense of reliability for the kids. Speaking of reliability, let's talk about the teacher's own emotional state. This feels like the bedrock of everything, doesn't it?
It really is. Strategy 7: regulated emotional responses, or self command. When we display irritation, frustration, or outsized emotion early in a disruption, it gives students a roadmap. Some, unfortunately, will intentionally provoke to see that reaction.
Ugh, the baiting. It's so hard not to fall into that trap, especially when you're already feeling stressed. But you're right, it just fuels the fire. It reveals a low emotional threshold, and some kids will exploit that.
It shows a lack of authentic power. Because this strategy is fundamentally about co regulation. Children and adolescents are still developing their prefrontal cortex, which handles self regulation, so they actually rely on our external nervous systems to help them regulate.
Ah, the dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child principle. If we react with a spiked heart rate, a raised voice, or facial tension, we're just introducing more sympathetic arousal into the environment. It narrows their window of tolerance and pushes them into hyperarousal.
Exactly. Conversely, when we maintain a calm, anchored tone and relaxed posture, we provide that crucial external regulatory support. We help shift the dysregulated student back into a state of physiological calm. It's a huge act of leadership, truly.
That makes so much sense. It's about being the eye of the storm, and that calm, regulated presence feeds into the last two strategies we want to talk about: predictability and consistency.
Absolutely. Structural predictability and HPA axis regulation. Strategy 10: implementing predictable settling routines. Starting a lesson without one leaves those opening minutes vulnerable to chaotic momentum. It makes our control seem improvised.
And improvising in front of a class of 30 teenagers is rarely a good idea. I remember the do now or bell ringer activities. Those were lifesavers. Students come in, they know exactly what to do, no questions asked. It just sets the tone.
That predictability is a primary regulator of the HPA axis, the body's neuroendocrine stress response. For kids, especially those with trauma histories, unpredictable environments keep cortisol levels elevated. That takes their prefrontal cortex offline, impairing memory and focus.
So, a predictable settling routine lowers that cognitive and emotional load. Their neuroception signals safety because they know what's expected. It deactivates those defensive neural circuits and allows their brains to get ready to learn. It's like a warm up for their brains.
Exactly. And this leads directly into strategy 9: consistency and standards. Correcting a behavior one day, ignoring it the next, and then punishing it emotionally on a third, that just destroys trust. Students are forced to read your mood rather than respect the standard.
That sounds exhausting for everyone involved, for the teacher and especially for the students. They're in a constant state of hypervigilance, right? Constantly trying to predict whether today's the day it's going to be okay or it's going to be a problem. That's another chronic stressor.
It is. That unpredictability exacerbates HPA axis dysregulation, but consistent standards foster a robust neuroception of safety. When the environment operates on reliable laws, not the caprice of the educator, cortisol levels stabilize, the amygdala deactivates, and the prefrontal cortex can fully engage.
It means the nervous system spends less energy scanning for threats and more energy on learning. This all sounds incredibly powerful, Robert, but how does this integrate into the broader U.S. educational system, especially with things like PBIS and culturally responsive practices?
That's a crucial point, Alice. These strategies aren't meant to be implemented in a vacuum. They align seamlessly with Tier 1 universal supports within the PBIS framework: positive behavioral interventions and supports. PBIS emphasizes explicitly taught behavioral expectations, clear routines, and consistent follow through. When teachers use proximity control and neutral, single instructions, they're handling minor infractions in the classroom, which drastically reduces reliance on punitive out of school suspensions that disproportionately affect vulnerable students.
So, these proactive neurobiological strategies actually help promote equity by keeping kids in the classroom and learning, rather than sending them out. That's a huge benefit. But I know some highly structured models, like no excuses approaches, have faced critique for being too rigid or culturally insensitive. How do we ensure these strategies are also culturally responsive classroom management, or CRCM?
That's an excellent question, and it's vital. CRCM demands that educators understand that behaviors and communication styles are culturally situated. So, while direct language and neutral affect establish clarity and psychological safety, they must not be used to enforce cultural assimilation, silence students, or police their physical bodies. Equity means applying predictable structure while maintaining deep relational warmth, validating student autonomy, and recognizing the cultural wealth students bring to the environment.
That makes perfect sense. It's about being firm but also warm, and critically, being respectful of diverse backgrounds. And finally, how do these strategies fit into trauma-informed practice?
Trauma informed practice is another essential lens. When a student misbehaves, we need to recognize that it's often an autonomic stress response, fight, flight, or freeze, rather than calculated defiance. A trauma informed educator uses co regulation, brevity, and proximity to widen the student's window of tolerance. The goal of a commanding physical presence and predictable routines isn't authoritarian control, it's creating a felt sense of safety that allows a traumatized brain to downregulate, mitigating stress and allowing access to higher order executive functioning.
So it's all about making the classroom a physically and psychologically safe place first, then the learning can happen. It's a complete paradigm shift, isn't it? From managing behavior to regulating nervous systems.
Exactly. Effective classroom management isn't just about discipline, it's applied neurobiology and psychological attunement. When we, as educators, eliminate mixed signals, excessive verbiage, and emotional volatility, we prevent the activation of students' amygdala and sympathetic defense circuits. We actively cultivate a neuroception of safety.
And by replacing those detrimental habits with predictable routines, proximity control, and brief, direct instructions, we shift the classroom from a state of hypervigilant survival to one of ventral vagal social engagement, ready for learning.
Precisely. An educator's true authority isn't about volume or coercion. It comes from being the reliable psychological and structural anchor of the room. When we achieve that, we unlock the academic and social emotional potential of every single student. It's powerful stuff.
That's such an empowering message, Robert. It really shifts the focus from what do I do when a student misbehaves to how can I create an environment where misbehavior is less likely to happen in the first place. Thank you for breaking all of this down so clearly.
My pleasure, Alice. It's a journey, but these strategies are truly game changers. And for all of you listening, we encourage you to reflect on your own classroom habits and consider how these neurobiologically informed approaches might transform your teaching practice. You've got this. Be sure to like, subscribe, and join the conversation on your favorite podcast and social media platforms. Also, check out the new Teacher Support Series section at edresonance.com for an amazing breakdown of all the great teaching tips and strategies from our publications and blogs. Until next time, stay tuned into learning.